Good morning. Welcome to the July 9th, 2024 regularly scheduled land use meeting of the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners. Would everyone please rise for the pledge and invocation given by our chaplain, Commissioner Cameron Tepeda.
Heavenly Father, we come before you with thanksgiving. We thank you for who you are and your great love that you have for each and every one of us. We pray this morning for a special prayer for anyone in our county that is suffering in any way. We pray a special blessing over their lives. And this morning we also pray for Maura Cruz Lance, whose husband Manny Lance recently passed. We pray that you comfort them. We pray that you comfort her and her family. And we pray for your special peace over them during this time. We pray for everyone in Hillsborough County that it is well with them in their spirit, soul, and body. And we pray that their every need is met. And we ask you to bless this meeting in your holy name. Amen.
Thank you, Commissioner Cameron Tepeda. Before I pass things over to Mr. Gray to go over the changes, I want to first of all welcome Commissioner Miller to her first land use meeting. I think you'll find that these are always so enjoyable. So, and also Commissioner Kemp is unable to appear at the land use meeting today. She's traveling and planned to appear virtually. However, she missed her flight and will be, her flight was delayed and she'll be in the air. So with that, Mr. Grady, you want to review changes to the agenda?
Good morning, Commissioners. Brian Grady, Hillsborough County Development Services. In addition to the withdrawals, continuance, and remands on pages 3 and 4 of the agenda, we do have a number of changes and corrections to the agenda. The first change is on page 8 of the agenda, item B9, Waterset Wolf Creek Phase F. Revised report has been added to correct the warranty bond amount on the recommendation from $169,816.55 to $543,226.12. A second change is on page 9 of the agenda, item E1, PRS 24-0301. A revised report was added to the backup to correct the proposed site plan that was found on page 16. The next change is on page 13 of the agenda, item I1, status report in the Live Local Act development projects. Pages 4 and 5 of the report has been updated. An additional project was recently submitted for review, and therefore the table and map has been updated to include that new LLA project. And the final change is under Commissioner items, the Commissioner Hagan item for the board to consider a motion to discuss the applicability of a moratorium on new development applications submitted under the Live Local Act. Those are all the changes to the agenda.
Can we have a motion to approve the changes?
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion, Commissioner Meyer, second Commissioner Cohen. Please record your vote.
Motion carried 6-0.
Can we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Motion, Commissioner
Second.
Cohen, second Commissioner Myers. Please record your vote on the consent agenda.
Motion carried 6-0.
So anyone here is for a B item, your application has been approved. At this time, if you're planning on testifying today, would you please stand, raise your right hand so the clerk can swear you in?
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Okay, that takes us to the public hearing agenda. Mr. Grady, want to introduce the first item?
Commissioners, the first item is agenda item E1. It's PRS application 24-0301. This is a minor modification of plan development that's located on the north side of Memorial Highway, west of George Road, and also west of the Veterans Expressway. The request is to modify a portion of the project. The PD was approved with 8 lots all fronting onto Memorial Highway with the allowance for conversion, redevelopment for office development up to 24,000 square feet. Per the current site plan, 4 of the lots have direct access to Memorial Highway, and the other 4 lots on the east end of it, basically Phase A, are required to redevelop into more of a unified plan with limited access. This request is to take 3 of those lots, which in the middle of the area as shown in the below graphic, to create a new development parcel for one building and modifying access to accommodate that. As part of this change, they are also requesting modifications to required screening along the northern boundary to do a PVC fence instead of a wall. And as part of that, they're providing for larger tree plantings along that area, 10 feet tall. With that and the increased setback they're providing on the site plan, staff is supportive of all those changes. They're also asking for modification regarding what elevation they utilize to measure building height. Staff is recommending approval of these changes and are available for any questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is the applicant here? Good morning.
Miller, 401 East Jackson Street, number 2100. Commissioner Miller, welcome to the party. Commissioners, we agree with the staff recommendation. We think this is a relatively straightforward application. We're simply modifying a portion of this PD to bring it up to current standards for this small local business. And with that, we ask for your approval. Our team is here if you have any questions. Thank you.
All right, any proponent testimony? Anyone in opposition? Commissioner Wostel.
I just wanted to say, while it's odd, I'll move approval.
Okay, we got a motion to approve Commissioner Wostel, second Commissioner Cameron Cepeda. No comments. Please record your vote.
Motion carried, 6-0.
All right. Ms. Grady, next item.
Commissioners, the next item is agenda item E2, PRS application 24-0632. This is for a minor modification to the Masonic Park and Youth Camp that's located on the east side of US 301, just north of the county line with Manatee County along the Little Manatee River. The request is dealing with modifications to the portion of the PD that deals with a 120 space RV park. The applicant is requesting modifications to the development standards pursuant to that section of the code, consisting of modifications to the minimum driveway widths for the RV park, sidewalk requirements, site development standards, and modifications to the removal required regarding the emergency facility for during hurricanes. Staff's reviewed this and is recommending approval. With respect to driveway widths, they will be subject to compliance with fire code requirements regarding external and internal sidewalks. They will be subject to meeting ADA requirements to the extent there are applicable. I would note regarding that change, there is a typo in the conditions of approval item, condition 6F. The word internal on that condition should reference external, so 6F is being modified to remove the word internal and adding external to it. Regarding the development standards, staff finds those no issues incompatible with the area given the separation of this property from the surrounding developments. And regarding the storm shelter, in coordination with our emergency management staff, staff is not objecting to that removal because in part the applicant does have operational requirements where they do require evacuation of the RV park persons during any kind of storm event. So all in all, staff is recommending approval of these changes and we're available for any questions. Thank you.
All right, is the applicant here? Good morning.
The law firm Hillward Henderson representing the applicant, 101 East Kennedy Boulevard, Suite 3700, and I have been sworn. I will make this as succinct as possible. I just have two visuals. I want to thank staff for their communication with us throughout this process and for working with us on the conditions that we came to. This is overall a pretty straightforward request. It is a request to basically leave an existing longstanding RV park campground as it is. This has operated with 120 units for many years, and the board, except for Commissioner Miller, will remember last year, it came up for a major modification to basically vest those 120 units that had been there for a very long time, where only 36 had been recognized during zoning conformance in the 90s. And so for the last 3 years, over 3 years, they've had to, while the major modification was pending and while they're going through the site plan review process, which is why we're here today, they've had to only operate with those 36 RV units. They're losing significant necessary revenue to maintain the park every winter season. And so the goal is that this winter season, they can finally bring back all 120 RV units onto the site. The request that we're making for relief makes sense to us because this is a wilderness park. The LDC doesn't really contemplate this setting. It's for, it's not a luxury urban RV park. So we're requesting approval. We appreciate staff's conditions and recommendation. We're here for any questions, and I would like to bring the applicant up just to speak briefly about the Masonic Park's purpose and their contributions to the community. Thank you.
My name is Eric Bade, 4214 Sandy Shores Drive, Lutz, Florida, 33558. I'm a member of the Board of Directors for the Masonic Park and Youth Camp. As our attorney just noted, this PRS represents an almost 3 years long legal process for our park, and hopefully today we can bring that process to a conclusion. So on behalf of the board, I just want to take a moment to thank Adam Gormley, Sam Ball, Mike Williams, and Brian Grady for all the work that they did. A lot of challenges last year and this year. And our attorneys, I think, have done a fine job explaining our request. I just want to convey to you what the Masonic Park is and why this PRS is so important. Without this approval, it's inevitable that we are not going to be able to maintain the park. We've had numerous multi-million-dollar offers to purchase the land, which we've rejected. But the cost to insure and run this park have quadrupled in the last few years. And while we've operated without our RVs at a fraction of our normal revenues, the park's a natural resource. It's over 200 acres, 150 of which we haven't touched for 50 years. It's close to a mile along the Little Manatee River, and that also remains untouched after almost 50 years. And while we charter 3 local scout troops, we also allow camping to any scout troops throughout the state of Florida at no cost. We have comprehensive plans to provide uniforms, equipment, and funding to help families that actually can't afford to put their children into scouting. We support the Metropolitan Ministries, Shriners Children's Hospital, local schools like the Carver Exceptional School. And what many people don't realize is that this park, in a manner, it's also a place of affordable housing during the winter cycle, as residents from up north, retired seniors, come down, and for $500 a month they can stay at the park. And last, what many people don't know is, because the park is mainly empty between July and October when we don't have winter visitors, we use the park and allow the park to be used for linemen who are down to assist in hurricane recovery efforts. But because of the loss of the revenues, storm damages from recent years, and this legal process that we've gone through, we've lost well over $500,000 in revenues. And it isn't to us because we're a nonprofit. It's to the community, it's to the youth groups that we help or have strived to help over the years. So in order to continue to meet those charitable obligations, continue to serve the community, and to assist the use of those communities, this PRS request is critical. Otherwise, in the coming years, we may be forced to sell the park. And you all know from a development standpoint, the developers that would buy that land won't be the good stewards that we believe we've been for the last 55 years. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your comments and service to our community. Any proponents? Any opponents? Commissioner Wolstel?
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to thank staff. I've had several meetings about this. I've always cautioned about us having big blanket countywide restrictions where it seemed like we were having a very rural usage required to have incredibly urban type of infrastructure improvements, sidewalks, wider roads. I pointed out that oftentimes growing up, I stayed at KOA camps that were very affordable for low-income families. They had crushed gravel road or chopped wood for you to drive on, walk on. And the more that we require rural services to have super urban type of infrastructure improvements, the more likely, he already alluded to my point, is that that's when they leave and then the community is complaining that there's another high-density developer that's wanting to come in. And I just really want to thank you all for working with them and making this happen. So I'll move for approval.
Got a motion to approve. Commissioner Wolstel, second Commissioner Cohen. If no other comments, please record your vote on E2.
Motion carried 5-1. Commissioner Cameron Cepeda voted no.
Okay, E3.
Next item is agenda item E3, PRS application 24-0755. This is a request to rezone a portion of a planned development that's located on the south side of Gibsonton Drive in the Riverview area, west of US 301 and east of I-75. Ostensibly, the request is to modify the area identified as Parcel A within the plan development. At the time the zoning was approved, Parcel A had a number of uses restricted in an effort to provide for a transition in land uses, given that this parcel was on the western boundary of the PD and given the development pattern at that time during the original zoning approval. One of those uses prohibited was fast food restaurants and restaurants with drive-throughs. The request through this PRS is to add that use back in as allowed use. Staff is supportive of this from a compatibility standpoint. The development pattern has changed in the area to the north and west of the property, really negating the need for that transition in land uses that was the basis for restricting the uses in the first place. Therefore, staff is recommending approval, and staff is available if you have any questions. Thank you.
Is the applicant here? Good morning.
Good morning, Cammie Corbett with the law firm of Hill, Ward & Henderson, and welcome, Commissioner Miller. It's nice to have you here. Just real quick graphic to add to staff. I want to show you an aerial of 2006. The property was zoned in 2003, and so in 2006, which was the earliest aerial that was available, that's what was to the west and to the north. You see very little development. And then fast forward to 2024. Here's what you have now. You have a fully developed mixed-use center that has a charter school, multifamily residential, a Lowe's home improvement, retail strip centers, and fast food in all of these other locations. This is a major corridor in Hillsborough County with access to interstate, and so it would provide an opportunity to redevelop what is an existing bank building, which is going dark, to redevelop and more develop to a use that's probably more likely to succeed in this area. And with that, we'd respectfully request your approval.
Any proponent testimony? Any opponent testimony?
Move approval.
Got a motion to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Cohen, second Commissioner Wilstel. No comments. Please record your vote on E3.
Motion carried, 6-0.
Ms. Grady, F items.
Next item is agenda item F1 is rezoning PD 23-0997. This is a request to rezone a 227.7 acre parcel that's located in the Apollo Beach area, south of the Apollo Beach and extension over I-75, east of US 41, adjacent to CSX rail line on the western boundary. The request is to rezone the property from agricultural rural to a planned development to provide for 750 units containing a mix of single-family detached and single and attached townhomes. From a compatibility standpoint, based on the surrounding development pattern, development services had no compatibility issues or concerns with this proposal. You will note that there are split recommendations where the Planning Commission found it inconsistent and the hearing officer recommended approval along with our approval. The primary issue with that inconsistency is dealing with minimum density policies in the comprehensive plan, where this is SMU 6 plan category, which would require based on minimum densities at the zoning stage development showing a density of approximately 4.5 units per acre. The request is for 3.3 units per acre. Based on the policies in the plan, Planning Commission did find it inconsistent. Based on the site characteristics in the area to the west and the western end of the property containing wetlands, floodplain, and small area that's in the coastal hazard area, staff was comfortable supporting this, notwithstanding non-compliance with the minimum density policies. Therefore, again, staff is recommending approval. Planning Commission found it inconsistent, and the hearing officer also recommended approval. And we're available for any questions. Thank you.
All right, is the applicant here?
Good morning, Commissioners. Welcome, Commissioner Miller. My name is Rebecca Kurt with Brooks and Rocha, 400 North Tampa Street. I am here representing Lennar Homes on this project. We have Drew Irick from Lennar Homes. Steven Spazzato is our planner. Trent Stevenson is our engineer. And Steve Henry is here for transportation. This is a rezoning of approximately 227 acres in the urban service area. It is located in the middle of the Waterset community. The Waterset is to the north and to the south. We are asking for up to 750 dwelling units, a mixture of single-family detached and multifamily in the form of townhomes. We are in the SMU6 suburban land use category, and we do have a gross density of 3.3 dwelling units an acre, but we have a net density of 4.7 dwelling units an acre, which our planner will discuss in greater detail. We do have support from planning staff as well as the zoning hearing master, and we had no opposition at the hearing. We do, as you were told, have an objection from the Planning Commission based upon minimum density. However, we believe that we made several of the exemptions to the minimum density requirements, and that was supported by the zoning hearing master. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to our planner to go into greater detail on those issues.
Good morning. My name is Stephen Spizzato. I'm a certified planner with Level Up Consulting, 505 East Jackson Street here in Tampa. Excellent. Okay. In terms of the sub-regional context, the project site is nearly surrounded by DRIs, which provides historical context on how the adjacent area was planned and also developed. In the immediate context, the Waterset DRI is the most significant feature. It butts our site on 3 sides. It includes designations like town center, mixed-use, retail, office, educational, and also environmental. Our site is sandwiched, as you can see, between the residential designation, intensity and density within Waterset, focused along major roadways or at major intersection. Our site is not at an intersection or fronted on a major street. In fact, access is dependent on the extension of 30th Street Northeast. If we zoom in a little bit, you can see that what is proposed is contextually consistent with adjacent development. North and south are single-family detached and 2-family homes with constructed stub-outs into our property. The design balances the tension within the comp plan, dealing with density and minimum density. It also looks at the tension with what has been approved and developed all around, the environmental features on the site, as well as market conditions. And the applicant has agreed to a minimum percentage of townhomes, which is the peach color. There are no impacts to jurisdictional wetlands, which are the darker green color. There's significant floodplain on site, and that's represented, the mitigation ponds are represented by the darker blue along the western boundary. We do have a small amount of coastal high hazard area that overlaps a portion of the wetlands. We have the focal point of the community is a 5-acre community park. The main entrance off of 30th, described here as Road A, includes a 10-foot sidewalk. As Rebecca mentioned, there's minimum density requirements when the comprehensive plan when you're in the urban service area, but the plan also allows for reductions because the plan can't foresee the specific circumstances of individual projects, and the reductions are based on compatibility and infrastructure limitations and environmental factors. All 3 of those are found on this project site. In terms of compatibility, I addressed this a little bit, but you can see that density both north and south is slightly less than what we're proposing. The red hatched is the floodplain mitigation, or the floodplain area. Development adjacent, the area, if you look at the development area and you subtract out the wetland and the floodplain mitigation, the actual net usable area is much less than the gross density. And you can actually see the similar development pattern, again, north and south of our project. Infrastructure, again, is also an exception. And our development area is reduced by the dedication of right-of-way for the extension of 30th Street. In conclusion, the analysis shows that the project density fits the context and is consistent with the comp plan. In fact, when acreage for wetland preservation, floodplain mitigation, and right-of-way dedication for 30th is factored in, the net density exceeds the 75% minimum threshold. Thank you.
Thank you. This slide shows our interconnectivity as well as the extension of 30th Street. Finally, I just want to reiterate that we have no objections by any reviewing agencies. We were found compatible and approvable by the zoning hearing officer. we have proven that we meet the exemptions to the minimum density. In fact, if we were to meet the minimum density on this project, we would have to introduce multifamily on this parcel, which we do not feel would be appropriate and supported by the neighborhoods. We are available if you have any questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any proponent testimony? Anyone in support? Anyone in opposition? Planning Commission?
Thank you, Melissa Leinhardt, Planning Commission staff. The subject property is located in the suburban mixed-use 6 future land use category. The site is in the urban service area, and the subject property is also located within the limits of the Apollo Beach Community Plan, as well as the South Shore Area-Wide Systems Plan. The subject site is in the urban service area, and per Objective 1 of the future land use element, this is where 80% of the county's growth is to be directed. Future land use element policy 13.3 outlines the site as less than 25% wetlands, and that the entire 227.78 acres may be utilized to calculate density. The maximum that can be considered for the site is 1,366 dwelling units. 75% of the allowable density would be at least 1,025 dwelling units to meet the required minimum density policy under future land use element policy 1.2. The proposed 750 units does not meet this criteria for an exception per policy 1.3. Regarding the first exception, development at density of 75% of the category or greater would be compatible as defined in policy 1.4 of the plan, and would not adversely impact the existing development pattern within a 1,000-foot radius of the proposed development. There are single-family developments immediately north and south of the subject site. However, there is presence of not only single-family but also two-family attached townhome style nearby. Furthermore, there are multifamily and commercial developments to the west and further north of Paseo Elmar Boulevard in the Waterset Town Center area. Secondly, as the site is in the urban service area, infrastructure is planned or programmed to support the development. Thirdly, the site is less than 25% wetlands. Although there are floodplains on the site, the applicant has not demonstrated that a higher density development would have an adverse impact on environmental features on the site or adjacent to the property. The burden is on the applicant to show that a design meeting minimum density would not adversely impact these features. Finally, the site is partially located within the coastal high hazard area, but appears to overlap with the wetlands, making up a small portion of the site's acreage. Based upon those considerations, Planning Commission staff has found the proposed plan development inconsistent with the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. Thank you.
Zoning Hearing Master?
The zoning hearing master considered the proposed rezoning of a subject property consisting of approximately 227.78 acres of undeveloped agricultural lands located north of 30th Street Northeast and Waterset Boulevard, south of 30th Street Northeast and Paseo Elmar Boulevard within the Apollo Beach area. The applicant's request is to rezone the property to plan development to accommodate development of up to 750 single-family attached and detached dwellings, with at least 25% of the dwelling units being fee-simple townhomes. The Development Services Department staff found the proposed plan development to be compatible with the residential developments to the immediate north and south of the property, and found that the proposal will have minimal impact and would be compatible with the surrounding zoning and development pattern. Staff found the rezoning request approvable subject to the conditions stated in the Development Services Department staff report. Additionally, transportation staff had no objections subject to the conditions specified in the staff report. The zoning hearing master concluded with a finding of consistency with the comprehensive plan and recommended approval.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Wilstel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Gormley, I see that it's zoned SMU 6 in the comprehensive plan, but they're only taking 3.3 gross density. So what could they have achieved if they really wanted to come in here and ask for the full kitty?
So, Commissioner, looking at the design of the project and the constraints on the project, to develop it at 6 units per acre would likely have dictated a different product type on the house. Excuse me, on the site, rather than single-family homes. There would believe to fit those units would need to be some sort of multifamily type development perhaps apartments, just for the number of units and the size limitation on the parcel.
North of 1,000 units, more than likely, of what they could have come in, or close to it.
Close to it, yes.
And I'm really thankful for the applicant because I can't find one person in your district, Commissioner Miller, that has asked for more density in District 4. And oftentimes we don't see the clarity, the clarity that the townhomes, they kept a minimum amount. Thank you for that. Fee simple, which is very helpful in understanding. Are you trying to introduce a rental component to home ownership because rentals are usually more transient and care less about their community, et cetera, et cetera. My only concern is in the past we had awarded some certificates of occupancy, some COs to apartments where the roads weren't necessarily all the way complete. So are we going to make sure that on these, that the 30th Street, are all of those things planned to be completely finished prior to the award of a CO?
So we have, Commissioner, in this plan, we have a phased COs. So there is an extension of 30th Street that would go through the project, and that 30th Street will connect to the north and to the south. The conditions are such that they can receive no more than 300 COs before that full leg is completed. A portion of that 30th Street extension will need to be completed, and that will let traffic either go north or south. And we calibrated that number 300 to what that road connection could accommodate.
So they can have 300 before they finish any of 30th Street?
Before they finish the complete, we break it into a north segment and a south segment. So they need to have either the north or the south segment completed before getting COs, and they can get up to 300 before both north and south segments are completed.
Okay. I'm only concerned because the only two other exits are through those other two pre-existing communities instead of the major outlets. So that's why I bring that up, and I want to try and avoid approving COs in the future that like those apartments that were down there when the roads were not all the way completed. And I guess then finally, and I'm obviously going to support it. I'll wait to hear. I see Commissioner Cohen. I'll wait to hear what he has to say. We just had a comprehensive plan amendment fell, and it failed at my lead, and that's because of this minimum density requirement that continues to come up. And the direction from the executive director of the Planning Commission, her direction was that, well, we can just vote to approve it anyways. And I just think that that's really bad when we continue to see the minimum density. I don't believe that since we've already achieved a greater percentage of infill like it was intended to do anyways, I don't believe that it's wise for the board to continue to have a plan in place when the guidance is that, well, you can just ignore the plan and leave that rule in place. So I believe that should have been removed, and since they guided us to just go ahead and approve these anyways beyond the minimum density, that's exactly what I believe we should do today. So I'll wait and hear what Commissioner Cohen and Miller have to say.
Commissioner Cohen?
Thank you very much. I'm going to put off for another day the big discussion about minimum densities. But I think this application is very interesting because it brings up a lot of the things that we have to weigh when we're making decisions. You know, we know that we need more housing, and we know that it's encouraged to be in the urban service area, but we also know that this is a very, very crowded and traffic congested area, and we know that there's environmental sensitivities here because it's partially in the coastal high hazard and also has at least a significant portion of the property that is environmentally sensitive. I think this is an excellent compromise between all those different interests. You have something that according to, I think what I heard, the maximum number of units that would have been allowable was 1,336. They're coming in at 750. So they're preserving a large portion of the property to be left in its natural state. They're not overburdening it with something that's going to create just, an overwhelming amount of congestion. And they are, to Commissioner Wustle's point, not putting in apartment buildings. They're putting in single-family homes and townhouses. So I think that that the Planning Commission in this particular case did not get it correct. I think that this is an excellent way of balancing all the different things that we have to weigh when we're making decisions on these projects. Thank you.
Commissioner Miller?
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for the warm welcome, and thank you to my colleagues for welcoming so generously. I appreciate it, and of course, staff that has answered my endless questions in the last week. I appreciate that. As I was preparing on this very steep learning curve for this meeting today, this was one of those that I was like, wait a minute, it's against planning. And so I just wanted to thank everyone for the work that goes into it leading up to it that allows us to be able to fully make these decisions. Because this is an example where I saw it was inconsistent with the plan based on the Planning Commission. But when I looked at it and meeting with my constituents over the last several months through this process, as to Josh's point, Commissioner Wilson's point, he said, I haven't met anyone that wants more density. And so in this case, I will be voting for this as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Myers.
Move for approval.
Got a motion to approve Commissioner Myers, second Commissioner Wolstel. No other comments, please record your vote.
Commissioner Cohen?
Yes, sorry.
Motion carried 6-0.
F2.
Commissioners, next item, agenda item F2 is major mod application 24-0029. This is for a major modification to a planned development for a 0.21 acre parcel within the larger planned development. The planned development encompasses a large area with a zoning conformance PD approved back in the early 90s. It contains a large number of permitted uses over a larger PD. This one parcel, they're requesting to modify that PD to allow for a motor vehicle repair on the property. As you can see from the agenda, it has all not supported by staff. The Planning Commission found inconsistent. The hearing officer also did not recommend approval. Really, the issues are not necessarily compatibility. It really has to do with respect to site design compliance. The site is non-conformant to many of the site development requirements, and most importantly, the existing design and the proposed design provides for the parking and access where you would entering and exiting and backing out onto the sidewalk and right-of-way area, and that was a concern of staff and concern of basically perpetuating that with allowance of an intensification of the uses. Therefore, that's one of the bases of not support. Staff is available if you have any questions. Thank you.
All right, is the applicant here? Good morning.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, my name is Todd Pressman, 200 2nd Avenue South, number 451 in St. Petersburg. I'd like to introduce the Matura family who are here. This is their property, and they've been working very hard on the property. I will tell you that this is about a retrofit from a 1960s site. And while the staff did a good job, we do believe that they have missed the target on this. And coupled with the fact that this is a tremendous environmental cleanup. I have a PowerPoint I'd like to walk you through if I may. Thank you, sir. Thank you. There we go. This is major modification 24-0029. This is a very small property, 0.24 acres in the East Lake Orient Park area. You can see from the property appraiser how small it is. And it's been this way for a very, very, very long time. This is a little bit closer look at it. You'll see that we're right up against the property to the north. This is an important picture. This is what the site was before the Maturas took it over. The recent timeline has kept it very busy. There's been a lot of activity. You can see it's been very messy, been very over-encumbered, and not a very responsible site. The issue today is a major modification of an old and unusual site. We're seeking one additional new use. An auto repair with one single operating repair bay. That's it. Long time existing since 1963. We're using the exact same footprint. And per zoning department, the old PD was just an official zoning map. That's how old this is. So when we first began working with this with Mr. Grady in his old position, and he's moved into the new position very well, the PD was strictly a zoning map. So we've had to come back with an intensive PD just to address this site, which is what this site is here. Again, the existing proposed building, same building, no footprint change at all in the site. There was a mess in the back, removed the structure, cleaned that up as well. The vehicle repair would be in the north part of the building with a loading zone in front. This is what it looks like, a single repair bay. You can see the neighbor to the north. You can see that's also an attraction for homeless and folks looking for a little coverage. Additional improvements that the Matures have moved forward to do, as you can see, it's significantly different, significantly improved. Everything's been cleaned up, building's been improved. We're in the CMU 12 future land use category, which, Commissioners, is a very intensive land use category. OC 20 is a second very intensive land use category that carries this use without any question. Now, importantly, Commissioners, an important finding is the Planning Commission staff report notes typical uses would be production, light restricted manufacturing, warehousing, offices, corporate headquarters, which is what we fall into. And here's a critical second finding. The Planning Commission, which uses locational criteria as one of their main determinants, has determined that the site does meet locational criteria. That's a critical finding by the Planning Commission. Now, another finding is by the Zoning Department that notes approved uses include an array of commercial, single-family, a wide range of uses in this respect. And that, in terms of compatibility, they tell you that the area has semi-tractor trailer storage, gas station, convenience store, and they note that the proposed use will not negatively impact the surrounding area and would be compatible with the surrounding area. That's a critical finding that I want to be sure you're well aware of. Planning Commission notes relating to compatibility. Furthermore, the proposed use is appropriate for the RCP land use category. The proposal is also consistent with Objective 8 and Policy 8.1. They note that it is, again, noting meets locational criteria, and there are no adjacent neighborhoods. And it meets the intent of the community plan. That's another critical finding. And here's additional, Commissioners. We have sent out 4 separate public notices, 4 different times. That means 4 big yellow signs. The yellow sign is about as big as this property is. We have had 0 communication, 0 opposition from anyone in the vicinity for all those notices. So this is a retrofit from 1963. We're making some improvements, but we cannot possibly fix everything up to 2024 standards. When you look at the property appraiser record, it goes back to 1963, shows a restaurant, fast food, property appraiser record for a store, and again, I'm going to show you this picture a number of times as to what this property was and the environmental impact that the site was. It looks pretty bad. Additionally, to the interior was also a mess. This has all been cleaned up, all been improved. They've done a tremendous job. And this would be their family business. So they're not improving this to sell it. This is for the Matura's son, who will be operating the one-bay auto repair. This would be the family business. There are a number of vehicular variances which are required, and that points again to the site that this is a retrofit, that this site it will absolutely require some kind of variances or waivers to be in any way functional. But we do meet parking. Transportation Department, this is an important finding again. This is a reduction of 730 trips as reported by your Transportation Department. Total peak trips, a reduction of 69. So the Transportation Department responds to these items, noting that the use and site are longstanding conditions, no question there, that we do provide the distance for backing out at, or a drive aisle at 24.75. The only difference is that a few of those feet are in the public right-of-way, not the roadway, but in the public right-of-way. So we do meet that. They note the site exceeds required 24-foot drive aisle. And importantly, transportation notes that the crash map for the last 5 years was analyzed in the vicinity for the subject property, and there's no crashes that occurred within 150 feet of the property. This is the 5-year crash map data. So we know we have the test of time as the site is operated, that it's operated safely. They note it's surrounded by proper property with similar existing conditions, will allow for the site formally does not allow for cross-access. That's very simple because abutting on the north, a 0-foot setback, is a small little shopping center whose parking is right next door. We can't do cross-access there. And to the south of the gas stations, you can see that's their access point. We can't do cross-access there. That will never be allowable or permissible. But on pedestrian, and this is to the south, you can see how close it is, and this is to the north. But we can provide pedestrian access to the north and south by the sidewalk. Clearly, this site, in summary, will be defunct, inoperative, and non-functional. It's incapable of carrying a use without the approval by the Board of County Commissioners. So I'll summarize or finish up by saying when you look at the zoning hearing master report, which is very short, very to the point, doesn't really include, it does not include under E, findings of compliance, non-compliance, and conclusions of law, it does not include any of this. The only comment it made is if the land uses, densities, or intensities or other aspects of development permitted are compatible with and further the objectives, policies, and land uses. And I've clearly presented to you that your staffs have found that. I'll wrap up by saying again, we've had absolutely no opposition of any kind. And the Mathuras are here hoping that they can move this property forward as they've done a tremendous cleanup. And as far as we're concerned, removed a terrible eyesore from this community. So with that, we appreciate your attention and consideration. Thank you.
Any proponent testimony?
If Mr. Matura may speak for a minute, sir.
No, so he's the applicant.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
well, he's got another minute and a half if you want to speak during your part. Go ahead.
Morning. Ramprasad Matura. I'm the owner of the property on Orange Road. We bought this building a year and a half ago with all intention of making a family business, and we have spent tremendous amount of money cleaning it up, taking care of all the code violation, and like I said, we'll keep it in the family, and I appreciate you all.
Thank you, sir. All right, any opponent testimony? Anyone in opposition? Planning Commission?
Thank you, Melissa Leinhard, Planning Commission staff. The subject property is located in the Research Corporate Park Future Land Use category. It is in the urban service area, and the subject property is also located within the limits of the East Lake Orient Park Community Plan. Future land use element objective 9 and policy 9.2 require that developments must meet or exceed the requirements of all land development code regulations. The proposal is inconsistent with this policy direction. The Development Services Department and the Hillsborough County Transportation Review Section have indicated during sufficiency review processes that there are concerns with the non-conforming site and its inability to meet certain setback, street, tree, parking, and cross-access requirements. The Transportation Review Section objected to the proposal based upon those reasons. Policy 9.3 of the future land use element discusses legal non-conforming uses and permits the rebuilding or expansion of existing legal non-conforming uses which do not have any significant adverse effects on adjacent properties. The objection by the county pertaining to the safety of the proposed parking, loading, and other vehicular movements are not consistent with this policy direction. The proposed rezoning meets the intent of future land use element objective 16 and its accompanying policies related to neighborhood protection. The proposed vehicle repair use is suitably located in accordance with locational criteria and is among similar uses within its operating characteristics. There are no adjacent neighborhoods which would require buffering and screening between land uses. However, the proposal is inconsistent with the intent of policy 16.3 as the building is non-conforming. This prevents the development of adequate parking and safe vehicular maneuvers. The proposal also does not include vehicular or pedestrian cross-access. Objective 15-12 and policies 15-12.1 and 12.4 discuss access across property lines for both vehicles and pedestrians to allow users of mixed-use areas to travel between uses without returning to the roadway. It also discusses the reduction of parking when access is shared. The proposal is inconsistent with the intent of this policy language. The proposal does not meet parking requirements and does not provide either vehicular or pedestrian cross-access. Mobility section objective 4.1 and policy 4.1.2 also discuss interconnections between adjacent compatible development, and the proposal does not provide that. Furthermore, transportation review staff has objected based on the limited parking area and the existing building location, as there are concerns about how the site will operate safely and there is not adequate space for cars to back out. Based on those considerations, Planning Commission staff has found the proposed modification inconsistent with the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. Thank you.
Zoning hearing master.
The zoning hearing master considered the proposed modification of the subject properties, zoned plan development 9256, currently designated RCP Research Corporate Park within the comprehensive plan's future land use map. The subject property consists of approximately 0.21 acres and located on Orient Road and unincorporated Hillsborough County. The subject property's zoning was established through the zoning conformance process. The existing plan development allows for a wide range of uses over a large area, but does not provide specific performance standards. The general area surrounding the subject property consists of a mix of commercial, residential support, and residential uses. Adjacent properties include a convenience store with gas pumps to the south, Orient Road and portable shed sales business to the east, a food store to the north, and an undeveloped parcel to the west. The applicant's request is for a modification to expand the existing entitlements to allow for major and minor vehicle repair uses on the property. The applicant has requested an administrative variance for vehicle and pedestrian cross-access to adjacent properties to the subject properties north and south. The Transportation Division staff comments state that the variance submittal lacked sufficient technical justification, and the county engineer deemed the request not approvable. Development Services staff has found the proposed major and minor vehicle repair use would negatively impact the surrounding area and would not negatively impact the surrounding area and would be compatible with the surrounding area. However, Development Services staff recommends denial of the major modification request based on objections and issues raised by Transportation Division staff. The zoning hearing master, in reviewing the record, concluded that the proposal would not be consistent with the Land Development Code and would not be compatible with the comprehensive plan, and recommended denial.
Commissioner Cameron Cepeda.
Yes, that was a great presentation, I believe, by Mr. Pressman. Shows only one, it's an auto repair shop with only one operating bay. It meets the locational criteria, it meets the intent of the community plan, and the picture obviously shows what a great improvement that they have really made out of this. And so I really support this, and I would even move for approval right now.
All right, we got a motion to approve Commissioner Cameron Cepeda. We got a second, Commissioner Myers. Commissioner Wostel.
Commissioner Cohen was waiting to laugh at my reaction to the trip reduction. I'm glad the trip reduction expert already left the audience, though. I just, I don't think that staff, I disagree with the applicant that staff got anything wrong. You guys, it's just, we have the ability to approve variances, and this board has had a history of supporting small businesses, and I'm very proud of us doing that. And we are empowered by state law to approve certain variances. I just want to make sure that we're not being negligent on the pedestrian access, the crossing. I guess that's probably the biggest hang-up, because it seems like a safety concern. It didn't look like there'd be much visibility out of that bay, so I'm obviously going to support it. I just want to make sure that we don't need to offer a continuance to make sure that something can be achieved if there is even a possibility from Mr. Gormley.
And you're referring, Commissioner, to the visibility of, so the pedestrian cross-access be accomplished through the sidewalk.
Yeah.
As you noted, there's a fence that separates those two properties, and so sensitivity is whether that fence would block pedestrians from coming through. Do you?
Just because it's on Orient and MLK, so I'm assuming that's a pretty high trafficked area. I just don't want, I obviously am gonna say yes no matter what. I just wanna make sure that if it's a garage, that there's not some type of serious safety mechanism introduced. If we can just work a little bit more, and if not, then it is what it is.
What I was gonna suggest and ask the applicant is whether some distance back from the edge of the right-of-way would be acceptable for that fence. I know there's a fence existing there.
Of course, sure.
The
Oh, yeah.
sensitivity would be, say, 5 feet back from the edge of the right-of-way for the fence. Is that something?
Yeah, more than happy to do as long as the code allows us to, sure, absolutely. We're happy to work with the commission in any regard, yes.
Great. Okay, then I'll support the item.
Do we need to include that in the motion?
Yes, and what I would recommend is that the motion include that this is approved for an additional use of major and minor vehicle repair, and the development will be consistent with the site plan that's in the board's backup, with the provision that the fence on the north property line be no further than 5 feet from the edge of the right-of-way.
Commissioner Wilson, you good with that? All right. Commissioner Myers?
Thank you. Just a couple of notes. This is in my district, and Attorney Pressman, thank you for giving us the overview, because when you look at the property to see what it was and what it is today, how they have cleaned it up, it's an enhancement for District 3. And I must say that you did an excellent job in a compelling to this board of why we should consider approving this project. And to the family, as a small business, this is an opportunity for your business to grow. And so I'm going to support the project as well. I made the second. But thank you for cleaning up and making District 3 look better than it was before.
Okay, we got a motion to approve. Commissioner Cameron Cepeda, second Commissioner Myers. No other comments. Please record your vote.
Motion carried, 6-0.
Thank you, Commissioners. Commissioner Myers, you might have said attorney when you said my name, and I want to be just on the record, if I heard that I am not and never stated as such.
I was gonna correct her after the meeting.
Thank you.
Well, hey, you definitely had billable hours.
Next item.
The next item is agenda item F3, rezoning PD 24-0183. The request is for a major, rezoning from business professional office to a planned development to allow for a contractor's office, including a pest control business. Staff did find this consistent in approval based on the surrounding development pattern, which consists of a largely commercial corridor along US 301. Planning Commission found it consistent in hearing, also recommended approval, and we're available for any questions. Thank you.
All right, is the applicant here? Please come forward. Morning, sir.
Morning. My name is Spencer Lackaby with Civil on Demand. We're located at 15436 North Florida. This plan development has support of all agencies. We don't have anything else to add beyond what's been presented. We appreciate staff's support throughout the process.
All right, thank you, sir. Any proponent testimony? Any opponent testimony? Planning Commission?
Thank you, Melissa Leinhardt, Planning Commission staff. The subject property is located within the Community Mixed Use 12 Future Land Use category. It is located within the urban service area and also within the limits of the East Lake Orient Park Community Plan. The proposal is consistent with the allowable maximum, allowable typical uses under the future land use category. It is also consistent with Objective 8 and Policy 8.1 of the future land use element. The proposal meets the intent of future land use element Objective 16 and its accompanying policies that require new development to be compatible to the surrounding neighborhood. Goal 12 and Objective 12-1 of the community design component require new developments to recognize the existing community and be designed to relate to and be compatible with the predominant character of the area. In this case, the surrounding land use pattern is mostly single family and light commercial uses. The proposed contractor's office with enclosed storage will complement the surrounding area. The East Lake Orient Park Community Plan's transportation goal ensures a balanced transportation system that reflects the community's character and provides options, including walking, bicycling, and transit. A 5-foot wide sidewalk will be constructed along the northern right-of-way line along the property's frontage. 2 substandard driveways currently accessing the site will be removed, and a single driveway will be constructed in accordance with Hillsborough County standards. The new driveway will increase separation from the existing driveway to the east of the subject site. The site also meets the economic goal, which provides opportunities for business growth and jobs in the East Lake Orient Park community. And based upon those considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed plan development consistent with the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan, subject to the conditions proposed by Development Services. Thank you.
Zoning hearing master.
The applicant is requesting to rezone the subject property to plan development to allow for a contractor's office without open storage. The applicant is proposing to retain the existing office structure and build a 6,900 square foot storage building and parking area. The applicant requested a design exception for garden lane substandard roadway improvements. The design exception was found to be approvable by the county engineer. The applicant has also requested an administrative variance for reduction of the minimum access spacing to allow minimum spacing of 120 feet and 134 feet between the project access and the next closest driveway to the east. This was found to be approvable. The Development Services Department staff found the proposed buffering and screening standards will adequately protect the adjacent residential uses from any potential negative impacts. Considering the record as a whole, the zoning hearing master concluded that the evidence demonstrated that the proposed plan development is in compliance with and furthers the comprehensive plan and is consistent with the Land Development Code and recommended approval.
All right, can we have a motion?
Move approval.
Motion approved, Commissioner Cohen, second Commissioner Wostel. No comments, please record your vote on F3.
Motion carried, 6-0.
All right, next item.
Next item is agenda item F4 is rezoning standard 24-0232. This is a request to rezone a approximately 4.5 acre parcel that's located just east of the Veterans Expressway. Access to the parcel is actually at it's part of the on-ramp to the Veterans. It's part of the Wilski Boulevard. Converts into the on-ramp in this location. Therefore, that's the access to the property. The request is rezoned from AS1 to commercial general with restrictions. The restrictions are limitations on the number of uses, car wash, convenience store, contractor with open storage, blood plasma donation, recycle, metal recovery facility, and motor vehicle repair restricted uses. The other restriction is limiting the AM and PM inbound AM and PM peak hours to 19 inbound trips. Based on the surrounding development pattern, which includes DOT parcels, owned parcel to the east, Hillsborough County owned parcel to the west, and significant wetland and creek system to the north, which provides separation from the properties to the north. Staff did find this request compatible and is recommending approval. Planning Commission found it inconsistent, and the hearing officer did not support the request also. So staff is available for any questions. Thank you.
All right, is the applicant here?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Todd Pressman, 200 2nd Avenue South, number 451 in St. Petersburg. This is 24-0232. I will say to you, Commissioners, that this is a story of missed facts, depending upon how you look at them. I'm going to walk you through that. This again, as well, we sent out 3 notices and 3 big yellow signs, and there's been no communication from the public, no opposition of any kind. We're located in the greater Carrollwood-Northdale area. The site is accessed by Wilski Boulevard. It's an unusual site, but it's located in access just prior to the beginning of the on-ramp to the Veterans Expressway. So very intensive site, very intensive location. 4.5 acres. You can see the expressway and the ramp and how it's oriented in that regard. The rezoning today is AS1 to CGR, which is commercial general with restriction. Now, the restrictions are important because we restrict the uses from intensive car wash, convenience store, open storage, recycling, metal recovery, motor vehicle. And secondly, your transportation department has really restricted us being less than 19 inbound trips in either the AM or PM. So very restricted both on uses and by those trips. Now, what's important is that that restriction was not considered or factored in by the Planning Commission. That's an important finding in terms of those restrictions, because according to the zoning department, those restrictions will exclude the high-intensity uses permitted in the CG district. Therefore, staff finds the CG with restrictions compatible with existing uses, zoning districts, and development patterns in the area. So that's an important finding because the Planning Commission included those uses in their review of this request. This is the future land use map. We're next to public, semi-public. You can see CMU 12, very intensive, is below. This is the zoning map. Zoning notes as well to the south of the site is commercial, office, and manufacturing uses. Planning Commission, however, presents it differently by saying that public, quasi-public exists to the east in the site. But what's very important, Commissioners, is that the public use is the Hillsborough County Solid Waste Facility. Very intensive use, a lot of trucks coming and going, and of course you have the entire solid waste facility operating almost adjacent to the site. Critically, the Veterans carries 80,900 vehicles per day. That element was excluded from the Planning Commission analysis. That intensity of that highway was not included in their review. Planning Commission notes that they can't support it because there are no unique circumstances, which with respect to the Planning Commission we would disagree with on just the points already I've indicated to you, the intensity in the area, being adjacent to the highway, being adjacent to the solid waste facility, and the other commercial uses. And their locational criteria is measured from a very far distance away, all the way down by Lineball Avenue, which is far from the site. But again, Development Services notes the property boundary abutting single-family residence is buffered by an acre wetland area. Again, not recognized by the Planning Commission. So what we mean by that, if you look at the site, very far to the north is one single-family home, and is separated by a massive wetland area as designated by U.S. Fish and Wildlife. So you see the site at the bottom, single-family home. Planning Commission notes that it's not compatible with the existing residential development pattern of the surrounding area due to single-family homes to the north, northeast, northwest, and further site of the subject area. But the reality is, and the missed point is with respect to the Planning Commission, is that one residential home is over 1,000 feet away, the other one is over 1,000 feet away, separated by the wetlands. You would have to be going to grandmother's house through the woods for a very long distance. So it's impossible to have any incompatibility with the residential issues that the Planning Commission is pointing out to you. To the south is over 1,000 feet and has to cross the Veterans Expressway, so there's certainly no impact on residential in that regard. And again, we've sent out 3 notices. We've never heard from anyone in the public in opposition to this request. So when the Planning Commission tells you it does not meet the objectives of neighborhood protection, we don't agree with that. They indicate the uses are located directly to the north, further northeast, east, and south of the subject site. But I've shown you, and it's a very important finding, that that's not the case. Separated by over 1,000 feet in every direction, and a significant massive wetland that's not going to change. And again, the solid waste facility was not factored in. Planning Commission notes that the subject site is within the limits of the Greater Carrollwood Community Plan, and to discourage new development of strip commercial, which this would not be. Or potentially could be, but we believe that it is a use that's very well suited and compatible for the site. So when you look at the ZHM conclusions, makes the same conclusion that land use densities or intensities and other aspects of development are compatible or are to be compatible with and further those objectives and policies. She found for denial, but I've clearly showed you zoning staff found it compatible. The use is located at a very intensive site, is tremendously separated from any residential, and is located in intensive future land use categories and surrounding uses. So with any questions or concerns, we'll be happy to answer them for you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any proponent testimony? Any opponent testimony? Planning Commission?
Thank you. The subject property is located in the residential 4 future land use category. The site is in the urban service area, and it is also located within the limits of the Greater Carrollwood Northdale Community Plan. Though the applicant is restricting certain uses, other potential uses allowed in the CG zoning category, such as hospital and ambulatory services, wholesale distribution centers, and shopping centers, are not compatible with the existing residential development pattern of the surrounding area due to the nearby single-family homes. In addition, regarding the inbound trip limits restriction, Planning Commission staff questions the enforceability of that restriction, and when addressing compatibility concerns, use restrictions are a more straightforward and clear way to address those concerns. Furthermore, Planning Commission staff is not party to the site development process and therefore must submit a consistency review based on the information submitted with this rezoning at this time. The proposed rezoning does not meet future land use element objective 16 and its accompanying policies that relate to neighborhood protection based on the surrounding residential development pattern. A rezoning to CGR would introduce a development pattern that does not match the character of the surrounding area. In addition, with the standard rezoning, a site plan is not required, and therefore it is difficult to evaluate site and building design and potential mitigation measures with the proposed use in this location. The subject property does not meet commercial locational criteria. According to policy 22.2, a site in the residential 4 future land use category must be within 900 feet of a qualifying intersection. The closest qualifying intersection in this case is Wilski Boulevard, a 2-lane roadway, and West Linebaugh Avenue, which is a 4-lane roadway. The distance from the subject site and the qualifying intersection is roughly 2,440 feet, and therefore the site does not meet this criteria. Planning Commission staff cannot support the waiver request because there are not any unique circumstances that would warrant the support of a waiver to commercial locational criteria. In addition, the proposed rezoning to CGR is not consistent with the character of the area and is not located at a major intersection where more intense uses are expected per policy 22.5. A strategy of Goal 1 of the Greater Carrollwood Northdale Community Plan states to discourage any new development of strip commercial in our community, and that mixed-use development and redevelopment should be focused at identified community activity centers or intersections complying with locational criteria. Due to the subject site not meeting locational criteria, the zoning request to CGR does not align with the vision of the Greater Carrollwood Northdale Community Plan. Based upon those considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed rezoning inconsistent with the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Hearing Master.
The zoning hearing master considered the proposed rezoning of the subject property, which consists of approximately 4.53 acres and is designated residential 4 on the comprehensive plan's future land use map, currently zoned AS1. The property is within the urban services area and located within the boundaries of the Greater Carrollwood Northdale Community Plan. The zoning hearing master noted that the general area surrounding the property consists of agricultural and residential uses. Adjacent properties include a parcel zoned AR to the west, owned by the county, a 15-acre parcel zoned AS1 to the north that is single-family residential use, a parcel zoned AS1 to the east that's owned by FDOT's Turnpike Enterprise, and a parcel zoned AS1 to the south owned by the Department of Transportation and the Veterans Expressway further to the south. The applicant's request is to rezone the property to commercial general with restrictions to allow for commercial use. Development Services Department staff found the proposed zoning to be approvable with the following specific restrictions proposed by the applicant. Restrictions on uses, including restricting any of the following uses: car wash, convenience store, contractor with open storage, blood plasma donation, metal recycling recovery facility, and motor vehicle repair. And there was also a restriction agreed to that the developer shall limit development to that which does not exceed less than or equal to 19 inbound trips, either in the AM or PM peak hour. As Ms. Leinhard explained, the Planning Commission staff found the request to be incompatible with the existing and planned development pattern in the area, and Planning Commission staff further found that the rezoning does not align with the vision of the greater Carrollwood-Northdale community plan. Based on this, the zoning hearing master's conclusion was to recommend denial of the rezoning.
Commissioner Cameron Cepeda.
Yes, was another great presentation by Mr. Pressman, but it does seem to be a good fit to me, but it's less than 5 acres. But I do have a question about, and if you mentioned it, I missed it, but the Hillsborough County Solid Waste Facility, is there any issues or concerns with that being so in the location?
We did not have any concerns related to the proximity of that or concerns from solid waste about the proximity of the zoning to the landfill.
Okay, well, so if there's no concerns with that, I would definitely support this and move for approval on it.
We got
A second.
motion to approve, Commissioner Cameron Cepeda, second Commissioner Cohen. Commissioner Cohen, recognized.
Yeah, I just, reiterating that the staff recommended approval on this, you know, when things abut an expressway and abut a solid waste site, and they aren't right next to single-family residential, they're buffered by an enormous amount of wetland, I think that you do take unique circumstances into account, and I'm not quite sure what we would expect them to do with this property if we were to deny this. I don't see what the alternatives really are in this type of a location. So I'm glad to support your motion.
Thank you.
Well stated, Commissioner Cohen. All right, we got a motion and a second. Please record your vote.
Motion carried, 6-0.
F5.
Commissioners, next item is agenda item F5 is rezoning standard 24-0338. The request to rezone approximately 1.43 acre parcel that's located on Oak Drive east of Providence Road, which is north of Blooming Ave, and in the Brandon area. The request is to rezone from ASC1 from ASC1 to RSC6 with a mobile home overlay with restrictions. The restriction is that the development will be limited to one single-family conventional dwelling and one mobile home accessory dwelling in compliance with the Land Development Code's accessory dwelling requirements. Based on those restrictions and the surrounding development pattern, staff did find this approval. Planning Commission found it consistent with the plan, and the hearing officer also recommended approval. Staff's available for any questions. Thank you.
All right, is the applicant here?
Good
Morning,
morning.
sir.
My name is Casey Lowe. I am the one requesting the rezoning. I live and reside at the property. I apologize, my representative couldn't be here today. He is a Hillsborough County Code Enforcement Officer, and he had to attend a hearing. I was told to be here, and I just want to reiterate that we're not planning to start a mobile home park by any means, so. I don't know if there's anything, like I said, this is all new to me, so I'm not sure what I need to be.
All right, well, we'll play it by ear, sir. We'll let you know. All right, anyone in support of the application? Anyone in opposition? Planning Commission?
Thank you. For the record, Melissa Leinhard, Planning Commission staff. The subject property is located within the residential 6 future land use category. The site is in the urban service area and also located within the limits of the Brandon Community Plan. Objective 1 of the future land use element directs 80% of the county's future growth into the urban service area. Policy 1.4 requires all new developments be compatible with the surrounding area, noting that compatibility does not mean the same as, rather it refers to the sensitivity of development proposals and maintaining the character of the existing development pattern. The proposed RSC 6 with the mobile home overlay zoning district in the residential 6 future land use category is compatible with the existing character of the development that's expected. The proposed rezoning meets the intent of Objective 16 and its associated policies relating to neighborhood protection. The proposed zoning district would allow for residential development that is reflective of the surrounding neighborhoods. The proposal also meets the intent of the Brandon Community Plan. The property is split between the urban general and the suburban character districts. The urban general character district is intended for a mix of uses, including a variety of housing types. The suburban character district is primarily residential with lot sizes of a quarter acre or less. It also allows for a variety of housing types. The mobile home overlay will allow for a variety of housing types, which is consistent with this vision. Based upon those considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed rezoning consistent with the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. Thank you.
Zoning hearing master?
The zoning hearing master considered the proposed rezoning of the subject property consisting of approximately 1.43 acres on Oak Drive in the Riverview area. The subject property is designated residential 6 on the future land use map and zoned ASC1. The zoning hearing master found that evidence in the record shows that on December 8th, 2009, the county approved a conditional use for a temporary manufactured home on the property due to medical hardship. County records show that the conditional use was approved for a period of 2 years. The conditional use approval letter specified that a new conditional use permit would be required after 2 years if the medical hardship still existed and the owner wished to retain the manufactured home on the subject property. The applicant's representative has stated that the medical hardship no longer exists and the manufactured home is no longer being used to accommodate a medical hardship. He testified that the property owner's son and family now reside in the mobile home. The zoning of ASC1 does not allow manufactured homes, and therefore this rezoning is being requested to RSC 6 with a mobile home overlay with restrictions to accommodate the existing manufactured home accessory dwelling. The applicant is proposing conditions to restrict development to 1 conventional single-family dwelling and 1 mobile home accessory dwelling. Development Services staff has found the rezoning request to be approvable with the following restriction: that development shall be limited to 1 single-family conventional dwelling and 1 mobile home accessory dwelling, in compliance with the Land Development Code's accessory dwelling requirements. The zoning hearing master concluded with a recommendation of approval of the request.
Commissioner Wostel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really wish that this was being handled a different way. I understand why the applicant didn't do a PD. It's excessively expensive. I wish we had a different mechanism, maybe a simple type of variance to allow them to do this that is affordable to them. Only reason I have reservations about it is because we've seen in the past where we'll get these high overview maps saying that the development pattern and rezone pattern of this area has changed over time, and I don't want us doing this to insinuate or promote, because they don't go into the details and say, okay, they were just doing this to allow this family to have 1 more manufactured home. I'm gonna move for approval on it. I do not support us having a pattern of doing this, because that's how 10 years down the road it says, oh look, the commissioners wanted this to be a stretch of mobile home parks there, which would be inaccurate. So I will move for approval.
Second.
Motion approved, Commissioner Wostel, second, Commissioner Cameron Cepeda. Commissioner Cameron Cepeda, you recognized.
Yes, so originally the purpose of this was for the medical hardship, and I'm sure it costs money to put it in, and it would cost more money to put it out, to take it out as well. And I was going to move for approval, but Commissioner Wostel already did, so, and I second, so.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Please record your vote.
Motion carried, 6-0.
All right, we have G1A and G1B, and that's going to be a combined public hearing.
Yes, Commissioners, the next items are G1A and G1B. These are related items dealing with a modification of the Waterset development. The G1A is a modification of the DRI development order and map H to reflect the same modifications that are outlined in G1B, which is a modification of the related PD for Waterset. Commissioners, the request on both these applications to modify portion of the PD on the south side of Paso Elmore Boulevard, just west of the overpass over I-75. This area, surrounding development pattern, these two parcels are parcels 9, tracks 9 and 11 within the PD. They are asking to basically redesignate this, to sort of flip the designations. The area on the east side adjacent to the county's water treatment facility and the school is track 9 and it's permitted residential uses and the school. And on the area on the west side of Covenant Drive is a mixed-use tract and so they're creating two new tracks, a 9A and a 9B, to sort of basically flip the track designation so that the area on the west side of Covenant Garden Drive will be a residential tract, and then the area on the east side will be the mixed-use tract. Staff is recommending approval on both changes. The conditions are also being modified and updated to address transportation-related conditions to address development of the parcel on the east side of Covenant Park Drive as part of this change, and also recognize that the completion of requirements regarding the school site dedication for the existing school that's located to the south. Again, staff has recommended approval, found these changes compatible with surrounding development pattern given the location of these parcels at this intersection and the surrounding uses in the area, and is recommending approval for both G1A and G1B, and we're available for any questions. Thank you.
All right, is the applicant here? Good morning.
Yes, sir. Elise Batzel, Stearns Weaver Miller, 401 East Jackson Street, Suite 2100. Welcome, Commissioner Miller. This is a super simple swap of entitlements. We are literally just taking 2.5 acres on one side of the street and 2.5 acres on the opposite side of the street and requesting to flip the entitlements. This is in the Waterset development. Our development team is here if you have any questions.
Short and sweet. Any proponent testimony? Any opponent testimony? Commissioner Wostel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just recently we had a lot of objections to a certain type of grocer in that area. The commissioners did, and I see this as SMU 6, but it was highly requested that a Trader's Joe be considered down there if the applicant would like to consider that. But I will move for approval.
Okay, we got a motion to approve G1A and G1B. Commissioner Wostel, second Commissioner Cameron Cepeda. Commissioner Cohen.
I just had a quick question, and I am going to support the motion, but the swap involves a retention pond.
Yes.
What is going to happen to the water that's currently in that pond?
Nothing. So it's funny, I talked to Brian Grady about, do we limit this to say it can only be a retention pond? But if this is a built-out subdivision on the west side, so if they in some way in the future want to move that retention pond somewhere else, I don't want to restrict them from doing that. So nothing is going to happen on that side of the street. We're taking the commercial entitlements from the opposite corner and putting them next to the school and next to Paseo El Mar, but nothing, it is completely built out on the west side of the street.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Commissioner Miller.
Thank you. Okay, so I just need some clarification, if you will, because I have seen retention ponds be filled in and stuff
Sure.
go up. Is there the possibility to ask that we could have something that states that it wouldn't be then built out? Like, is that an appropriate request?
Yeah, so let me explain. On that side of the street, we are not requesting any additional entitlements. So if 20 years in the future, they wanted to fill that retention pond in and put new development, they'd have to come back to you to increase the entitlements, and that would be a new agenda item coming before you. We are not changing the number of units. We are just taking the designations and flipping them so that corner on the east side can be developed. It's a small piece. It's a 2.5 acre piece, and it's right next to the main road. It's not appropriate really for residential development, and Waterset's pretty built out at this point in time. So the developer is really just trying to take those final entitlements and put them in areas where they can actually be developed.
Understood. Thank you for explaining it. Appreciate it.
Of course, thank you.
Commissioner Wostel.
So right now, if we didn't approve it, they would essentially have to fill in the current water and then put the water on the other side road, which would be more disruptive to the community that is right behind them. So overall, this puts it next to the field, right? That's what's essentially happening.
Well, the area on the east side is a complete subdivision, right? And there's a pond there. But that pond actually has entitlements that aren't being used, basically. And so we're asking to move those entitlements over, since it's already built out as, you know, a pond is a residential support use on the east side of the street. I don't know that they would actually move the pond, but
Sure.
But yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on G1A and G1B. Please record your vote.
Motion carried, 6-0.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, we have 2 H items and 2 I items. And Adam, I believe you wanted to take up the I ones first.
Yes, sir. If we could, I'd request that we take up the I items first. I believe the I items will set the context for the discussion of the rest of the H items. So, Commissioner, with that, item I1 is a report on the status of Live Local projects. This is a report that was requested at the last land use meeting, and the purpose of this report is to provide information on Live Local projects and where they are in the county's contact. So, brief overview of the Live Local Act. The Live Local Act allows that any area zoned for commercial, industrial, or mixed use can be considered for affordable housing if at least 40% of the units are proposed as affordable for a period of 30 years at 100 up to 120% of the area median income. Live Local projects do not require a zoning approval. They're to be processed administratively pursuant to the requirements of state law. The county has adopted a Live Local process that starts with a review of a proposed Live Local project to ascertain whether it meets the criteria in the statute, whether the density being sought is within the limits of the act, whether the height and whether the use are. We have several projects that are in that stage right now. The next stage after that would be to enter into a land use restriction agreement that would be the property owner committing to restricting the uses to meet the affordability requirements of the act. And once those are in place, then a project would come into the permitting process and go through the site development review process. So we have on the overhead a map showing the locations of the Live Local projects that have entered the county system. We have another page I'll ask Michelle to put up that shows a chart that shows the progress of those proposals, and you'll see that we have several that have submitted. We have 6 that have submitted and received some verification of some sort. 3 more that have been submitted, including one I believe was submitted yesterday, that are seeking a Live Local verification, and those are still pending. Of the 6 that we received verifications and provided verifications for, 2 of them have provided land use restriction agreements and are in the current permitting process. And those projects are located at State Road 60 in Valrico and off of Anderson Road, just a couple miles north of the airport. That's an overview of the status of the projects that are in the county. I'm available to answer any questions or take any feedback on information for future presentations. We do intend to make this a monthly presentation or informational item at the land use meeting, and available for any questions or feedback on the projects that are in or the format for the presentation.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Wilson?
Thank you. Mr. Gormley, are we doing anything proactive to try and identify beforehand, internally, what land might be subject to these type of applications?
We have not mapped out land that's subject to the applications. There are zoning districts, so that we have in the land development code some identified zoning districts that meet, and this will be the subject of the next report as well, so I'm delving into that a little bit. Some zoning districts that allow, that we consider to be commercial, industrial, or mixed use, and we also have a provision that allows consideration of planned development, portions of planned developments that are zoned for commercial, industrial, and mixed use. We have not undertaking a mapping of those projects that could potentially be subject to the Live Local Act.
This is very useful. I had not seen these yet. I remember it took me a couple of months to understand the numbering system beside some of our rezones, but PD 73 means 1973.
Yes.
I was born in 1984, 11 years later, and Live Local Act was put in 2022?
2023.
I see. Yeah, it's interesting to think of something 49 years old would be now subjected to a law that was only put into place 2 years ago. So I think that I'm very disappointed to see some of this, and I believe that some of it is a major breach of trust to the residents of Hillsborough County, at least from my office's perspective. So thank you very much for providing this.
Yeah, Adam, this is very helpful. Good job on this. It's thorough, and it just provides an excellent explanation of the status of various projects. Can we have a motion to accept the report? Motion, Commissioner
Second.
Westall, second Commissioner Cohen. Please record your vote.
Motion carried, 6-0.
Okay, Adam, I2.
Commissioner, the next item is I2. This is a report on the Orange County Live Local Act implementation or standard operating procedures. This item was brought up by Commissioner Wostall at the last regular land use meeting and was requested to be presented at this meeting. The context of the discussion that led to that seemed to focus on the treatment of planned development zonings, and so this report is focused in that way as well. As I noted earlier, there are preemptions in state law for land zoned for industrial, commercial, or mixed uses. We had viewed that as, we were looking at that as the uses permitted by the zoning districts as opposed to those being specific zoning districts themselves. We've looked at Orange County's standard operating procedures, and they do not consider land zone plan development to be eligible for Live Local. So they're making the distinction between the uses and the actual zoning districts. This is something that is there's a mixture of views on this within jurisdictions within Florida. There is an informal letter from the Attorney General's office where one of the staff attorneys had opined that the way that Live Local was intended, it was intended to exclude planned development zonings being considered, and rather the focus being on actual zoning districts rather than the uses permitted. The county has in the land development code, it provides that portions of planned developments that are zoned for industrial, commercial, or mixed use are eligible for Live Local. If the board were desiring to revisit that and make a change to that, that would take a change to the land development code. And if the board were so inclined, we are prepared with potential dates to move that amendment through in a quick manner. So I'll pause there or stop there if there's any questions or comments or additional information needed.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Wostall?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to hear what my colleagues have to say. I believe that that was pretty clear from Mr. Gormley that it seems completely eligible for us to be more clear about internally in our land development code about what specific codes are allowed to be or eligible for Live Local. Is that basically the short story? that we can be very clear and distinct about which ones, and any that are not included are clearly not eligible for Live Local Act. And what is the first date that you said would be available?
So we're looking at the dates of August 8th, and that would be a 6 p.m. public hearing. The board is currently scheduled for a public hearing that evening on some land development, some comprehensive plan amendments and some companion land development code amendments. So that first, we'd recommend the first hearing be August 8th at 6 p.m. And the second hearing, we were suggesting the September 10th land use meeting. That would be a daytime hearing, but having the first hearing in the evening would meet the statutory requirement of having one hearing held after 5 p.m. So those we believe are dates that we can have the amendment ready for board consideration. We have coordinated on the availability of a planning commission date to make a consistency finding on that. So we believe that those are viable dates if the board are so inclined.
Okay, so you just basically need a motion to ask you to establish the recommended hearing dates of August 8th and September 10th to amend the land development code to more clearly articulate which codes would be applicable to Live Local Act.
Yes, and we understand that specifically the intent of this would be to remove planned developments from that. Yes, sir.
Correct. All right, I will say, being a commissioner is a team effort. It's a group activity, not only from my colleagues, but also from the residents. I've received a lot of feedback back and forth. Members of the community that are passionate have done a lot of research. I couldn't have done this on myself. I specifically will thank Melissa Nordbeck from the Keystone area for finding this and identifying it as a potential cleanup of our own land development code. So I will motion to request staff to amend the land development code to identify specifically the codes that are applicable to Live Local Act with the intent to exclude planned developments at the recommended dates of August the 8th and September the 10th.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Wilson, second Commissioner Cameron Cepeda. Commissioner Cohen?
Thank you. In preparing for this discussion and having some discussions with the staff, I want to just come back to something Mr. Gormley said, which was that there's a tremendous amount of difference of opinion in different jurisdictions about, apparently, about what exactly is or is not covered by this law. And notwithstanding the guidance that's available from the Attorney General's office, it's my view after studying this for a while that the state is not going to ultimately allow every jurisdiction to decide what opts in and what opts out of this thing. I think it's a totally safe thing for us to work on, but I don't want us to get our hopes up that in the middle of this discussion, there's not going to be some huge preemption that comes out that basically interprets the law one way and says, this is what it's going to be. So as long as we're clear-eyed about the fact that we might not ultimately have control over this, I think it's a perfectly reasonable and good discussion. Clearly, a lot of our constituents want us to have it, but let's just be cautious about getting too excited about what we can control, because it has not been the pattern of this legislature to allow major laws like this to go into effect and let everybody go off willy-nilly deciding what is or is not going to apply.
Commissioner Wilson?
I don't disagree. I will tell you, though, from personal feedback and conversations, that this legislature is going to clean it up in a way that is more helpful to the local jurisdiction. So I am going into this clear-eyed with the fact, but in the Live Local Act, Mr. Gormley, it does clearly state that the Live Local Act applications still have to conform to the local comprehensive plan. They are not preempted from that. Is that correct? It clearly says that.
Yes, apart from the issues of use, height, density, and floor area ratio.
So So they were very specific, and they did very specifically say that they must still conform to our comprehensive plan. So I will just leave it there. Thank you.
Commissioner Miller?
Thank you. So I have a question related to, so now that this is public and it's very clear that we're going to go down this road of sort of restricting, what happens with the current applicants and perhaps an onslaught that are going to try to get in before any changes? Can you talk to me about that, please?
Yes, Commissioner, there are some options that the board can consider, and I believe that there are some, at least one of the future items is intending to address the potential, so there's a agenda item.
That's my item. He's
Oh,
referencing.
okay, well, I'll wait for that discussion. Thank you.
Okay, and I just want to say very strong. Commissioner Cohen makes excellent points, but I feel very strongly we should go down this path. I think it provides clarity and ultimately protection to neighborhoods. So we got a motion, a second. Please record your vote.
Motion carried, 6-0.
Next item.
The next items are item H1 and H2. I did allude to item H2. I believe that there may be some synergy between item H2 and the motion that the board just took. So it might be beneficial to take up H2 first for the synergy with the motion that was just taken by the board and the commissioner question that was raised.
Commissioner Wilson, you okay with that? Okay. Just a couple of comments, board members. I think as most of us feel that the Live Local Act bill was well-intended, but poorly executed and with many unintended consequences. It's untested, and I think local decisions and interpretations will likely be legally challenged, and perhaps that's why the Attorney General issued an informal AG opinion. I know in Keystone that this Live Local is a major concern. We've received, I think, over 150 emails in opposition to a proposed apartment complex on Van Dyke Road. When you read many of the emails, it's clear that there exists a lot of confusion regarding what our role is as elected officials and regarding what we can or cannot do to change or prevent an application from being approved. Additionally, people are upset that they are unable to weigh in as they normally can with a typical land use application process, and they're upset that the legislature has superseded our authority. With this particular development, the neighbors are concerned with development's negative impact on the neighborhoods, schools, and traffic. Now, Commissioner Wilson just mentioned essentially the legislature cleaning this up, I guess, with I call it a glitch bill, but this will likely not be until March. Wholeheartedly support Commissioner Wilson's action. It will go a long way. However, the challenge, I think, with that, based on the dates Adam gave us, that we're looking at 2 months out to fully implement these changes. So what I would like for us to do is something now, today, that will provide much needed relief and comfort to the residents, and we can do this by implementing a zoning in progress, which is essentially a stopgap measure that we have implemented 4 times previously. Most recently in March of 23 with a moratorium on vaping shops, and then we did it in 2019 in Waimama and in Baum. Simply put, the purpose of a zoning in progress is to preserve the status quo during the time that it takes to hold the required public hearings on the LDC amendment. This will provide relief and protect the neighborhoods who are at risk of these developments moving forward. I want to stress this is fully consistent with Commissioner Wilson's direction, and it only applies to the PD properties. I've also ran this by Adam this morning, and he concurs that this action is not only at our discretion, but appropriate based on the action that we just took. Adam, is that a fair characterization?
Yes, sir. And you have described very well the purpose of preserving the status quo while the legislative process that the board has just directed runs the appropriate course.
Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to pass the gavel and make a motion that based on our earlier decision to schedule the necessary public hearings to amend the LDC to remove PDs from qualifying under live local, declare zoning in progress, and direct staff to take no action inconsistent with zoning in progress declaration, including processing LLA verifications, requests for land use restriction agreements, and new applications for development approvals. So that's my motion. And
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. A motion second. Commissioner Wonster?
Thank you. I will say that on the initial language of the item that was presented, and because sunshine law, which I again will say is absurd, I couldn't just simply call and ask for clarification on what Commissioner Hagan was attempting. But so I did consult with the appropriate parties, and I do agree that because I wanted to do a moratorium last year on live local, and the state essentially implemented protections on that, but it is agreed that we are completely entitled and able to implement this very targeted, unexpected anomaly, so I will be supporting the motion.
I just want to make sure I understand exactly what the practical application of this is. So what you're saying is that anything that's in progress now essentially is in progress now, but anything from this day forward is held in abeyance until we are through with the update?
I think you characterize it accurately. It's essentially I define it as a stopgap measure. Adam or Joanne, you want to?
Yeah, what I understood the motion was for those projects that have permit applications in, and those are the ones on State Road 60 in Valrico and the one by the airport, that those ones that have actual permit applications in be allowed to proceed through the process. But any other applications, whether it's something with a live local verification or something at the land use restriction agreement stage or something that hasn't come in at all, would not move forward until while the zoning in progress is in place. So it would affect.
Only related to a PD or?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Only related to a PD.
Yes, sorry,
Okay.
yes, only related to.
This is.
Thank you.
I'm sorry if I wasn't clear.
Just clarifying.
It's completely consistent with what Commissioner Wolstel did. It's just a stopgap measure in between.
Okay, seeing no other, please record your vote.
Motion carried, 6-0.
Thank you, board members.
Adam, last item.
Commissioners, the last item we have is Commissioner Wostel's office item. Commissioner Wostel's commissioner item. This is an item requesting that we look at the comprehensive plan for policies, goals, objectives that may deal with, that may have a bearing on live local projects.
Commissioner Wostel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, as we heard earlier in conversations, the Live Local Act, the legislature was intentionally very specific about the things that were preempted from controlling high density use. But they also go on to say very intentionally that it does not preempt them from meeting the remainder of the comprehensive plan of the locality. So I motion to direct staff in the county attorney's office to work with the planning commission staff to review the county's comprehensive plan and identify the goals, objectives, or policies that may still need to be considered in the review of all live local projects.
Okay, we got a motion by Commissioner Wostel.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Cohen. So no comments, please record your vote.
Motion carried, 6-0.
Okay. Adam, you have anything else?
No, sir, that completes our agenda for
All
tonight.
right, we're adjourned. forwarding it via your email